Hey there, instructional leader. Welcome to the Catching Up with Casey show. If you are anything like me, then you envision collaborative learning communities in which the vast majority of educators are eager and inspired to go to work, feel valued and empowered while at work, and end each day with a great sense of purpose and fulfillment. And I believe this is possible if you have built cohesive, vision-driven teams. Teams that collectively move toward a common focus with leaders who are able to hold them accountable without micromanaging. And on this show, that's exactly what we talk about. Anything and everything that has to do with building cohesive, vision-driven teams. If you want to be part of the 30% who actually helps teams achieve district and campus goals, then you've taken a great first step in listening to this podcast. And if you're really serious about it, then you are going to reach out to me and see how we can work together to make that possible. Now, with all of that said, let's dive into today's conversation. Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to tonight's show. This is episode 99 of the Catching Up with Casey show, and I have a fantastic guest with me tonight. This is a repeat guest, and there's no doubting why I brought him back. You're going to find that out as we dig into tonight's content. We're talking with Joey Sanchez about beating burnout and prioritizing time so you can maximize results. So, Joey, welcome to the show again.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Dr. Watts. Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be back.
Yeah, this is going to be a great conversation. And we've talked before, and I can't even remember what episode it was. I want to say it was probably episode number 83. So if you guys want to reach back and check out that episode, I highly encourage you to do so. It was actually one of the most listened to episodes in 2024. So that's super exciting. And what I love about these episodes with people like Joey is that this is from the field. So Joey is actually, and he's going to tell you all about his position, but he's actually from the field and implementing the things that he is bringing to the show. So Joey, start by telling our audience a little bit about who you are, where you're from, your position, and your aspirations.
Yeah. Okay. So for those of you who are tuning in, once again, good evening. My name is Joey Sanchez, and I'm a proud assistant principal over at our ninth grade campus, Veterans Memorial Academy, over in San Benito, Texas, home of the gold standard in San Benito CISD. A little bit about what I do to go ahead and put it in words. I'm a little bit of a Swiss Army knife, I guess you could say. So we do a little bit of everything here. I have a heavy hand in discipline, attendance, safety, and security. Our special programs ranging from special education, 504, EB, testing, and even cheer. Hello, right? So I know it sounds like a lot, and it's a lot to unpack, but look, when you actually get down to it and you work together as a team to make sure everything is getting done and the results are there, it makes the job that much more enjoyable, and you feel very much magnanimous toward everybody you serve. As far as career aspirations, I think everybody has it on their mind to go ahead and move up the ladder and so forth. But I always like to say, just keep the main thing. And so what I try to focus on is just harping on my strengths, getting better at my weaknesses. I'm very well aware of what they are, and just continuing to understand that we have our goals still ahead of us in the month of January leading up to May. And so we need to make sure that we attack our vision and finish out the year strong.
Yeah, I love it. And there are two things that I love about what you just said. Number one, it is clear that you are really self-aware. And that's one of the things that I work on with leaders is building that self and social awareness, because it is a huge part of helping you to become like a leader of people and an influencer. And then the other thing that you mentioned was just getting back to what is our vision and how are we going to attack it, starting in January and finishing off the year strong. So tonight we're talking about beating burnout, and we're getting into that part of the year where it can feel pretty prevalent, that burnout phase. The breaks are fewer, the days seem longer, the months seem
Mhm.
longer. I want to ask you, first of all, what you notice are the most common signs of burnout among educators.
Yeah, so I mean, just going back to the COVID year in 2024, 2025, I think this conversation goes well beyond you or myself. We have over 50,000 educators who left the profession alone in general last year. Most of them citing their well-being, uh, the mounting expectations, the low pay, and things of that nature. So, I mean, it's kind of tough to really come to that. You know, the education market, especially in Texas, has certainly been in the mood. But I keep hearing a lot. I've heard a lot in the past of having an open door policy. Have an open door policy. If you need anything, my door is always open and such. Here's what I recommend. A cheetah will never stretch before going to get its prey. So ditch the open door policy for a minute. Get out into the field and don't feel afraid to go ahead and mix it up. Go by the five by five rule, meaning 5 minutes, five classrooms. Get into those hallways and classrooms as early and often as possible. The reason for that is because you would be surprised, absolutely surprised, of how much you're able to go ahead and pick up on just by observation. So even before I get a report for the day, I'm able to see who's absent, who's been out for an extended amount of time, just being on duty. I'm able to pick up on verbal interactions and body language, and you can really get a heartbeat of where the school community stands at that particular time, and get to know your professionals, not for what they do, but who they are and the interests that they have beyond the classroom, right? So, at least in my perspective, in my experience, when that is done, people will just come up to you and let you know what's on their mind. Typically, maybe it's something personal that they have going on in their lives, or maybe it's something as minuscule as a discipline issue, getting access to a platform. Maybe some students haven't been showing up to school and such, at least from what I've experienced. But on the flip side, I always caution that, look, when a school leader is not necessarily getting into the field, getting into the trenches, getting into those classrooms, and getting to know their people, at least hearing them out, that is when you're going to start witnessing burnout, followed by withdrawal, and unfortunately, departure from the profession.
Yeah, man, that's so incredibly powerful. One of the things that it reminds me of when as you're talking about this, I think about how often we create like these like we think about burnout and then we have these blanket assumptions of what we think is causing burnout. But if we're not getting out there and getting a pulse, like you said, on our people, then we're not going to know exactly what's creating burnout for each of them. And it could be different for each person, like we can't put these blanket answers on what's causing burnout as a whole. And so I love your idea of, this is a people business that we're in, and people
Yeah.
are complex individuals, and you have to get to know them on an individual basis.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that this is a social business. This is a business of people, and that is your greatest resource right there. And so you're investing in a lot of trainings and things of that nature into people. So I think it's best if you continue to have that pulse, like you say.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you talked about like the 5 by 5. I would love to hear a little bit more about that. But I think what people are gonna ask is like, how do you have the time to be able to do that? So I want to ask you about how you personally approach like time management to ensure that you're maximizing productivity without losing balance.
Yeah, and I think that the cliche answer to that is just you always want to prioritize your tasks, right? That's pretty much easier said than done.
Yeah.
And so at this juncture of my career, I'm at that advantageous position where I've had 5 years in the profession of administration, so I'm a little bit more well versed on the programs and things of that sort. So it comes a little bit more naturally to me. And then in particular, this is my second year on at Veterans Memorial Academy, so I understand the expectations and what goes into, running this campus a little bit more smoothly and such. So I've established a sort of a certain rhythm and a mental clock as to when things are going to go ahead and get done. Now, me, I know myself best. I know that I check my email early and often. And aside from that, one thing I do use is the Outlook calendar application. So I set up all of my invites, all of my meetings, every safety drill that needs to be conducted. That way I don't forget about it. Because one thing about that application is that it's going to go ahead and remind you as to when those things are going to go ahead and come up. So I think you have to find what works for you, right? And so right now we're in the month of January, going back to August. I knew that I want to have a certain amount of caseload items done by mid-October, late October. That way I could hone in on and really focus on testing measures for mid-November. Okay. And so that's a monster in of itself, but just making sure that I'm able to kind of separate the items and attack one of them one at a time. Okay. As best you can. But I think one of the main things to kind of take away from this is that as educators, you need to be able to compartmentalize those tasks and just chunk them into smaller pieces, because nothing is as big as what you make it out to be. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. It does take time, especially if you're in your first year. So if you're in your first year, you're doing well. Don't give up on it. Okay. I'm not going to lie about it. I've been in the office multiple times on Saturdays and Sundays, but it's not happening every single weekend. And I do make time for myself. So the biggest point of emphasis is don't try to do everything at once.
Yeah, man. I when I first started working as in the district administration offices, I had the hardest time trying to figure out, because it's so different than being in the classroom, right? Like in the classroom, you have a set schedule and you have like this amount of time during your conference period to get things done, or you set aside time like in the morning or in the afternoon to get it done when you don't have your schedule. But when you come out of the classroom, it is completely different and things are just coming at you all at once. And so I have over time, kind of like what you said, I have tried to perfect the art of time blocking and blocking my day into sections where like you said, I'm compartmentalizing. So at this part of the day, this is the only thing that I'm focused on. It could be an umbrella over a set of tasks, but this is really the only thing that I'm working on, these types of things. So yeah, that's super helpful. And I think too, we talked a little bit about the number of educators leaving the profession. It's not just teachers, it's administrators too. Like
Yeah,
it's
it takes its toll.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I want to ask you, what you talked a little bit about, like using your calendar effectively and efficiently. Do you have other tools and strategies that you have found really effective in prioritizing tasks to help you limit burnout?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I try to keep everything as simplistic as possible. I don't want to overcomplicate any messages I try to give myself or to any teacher in general, but I kind of like this quote a lot. Okay. And so I just finished up with a book by Deion Sanders, Elevate and Dominate. And he has a whole chapter dedicated towards talking about being where your feet are and be present. Don't try to live a double life. I was thinking about something else when it came to a double life, but he puts it like this: when you're at home, be at home. And when you're at work, be at work. And when you're with your kids, be with your kids, and don't be on the phone and things of that sort. Put it in a shoebox and throw it away if needed. And so he talks about how people have gotten to this point where they're at work, but they're thinking about home, or they're at home, but they're thinking about work, and they're doing stuff at work in their head. And so for teachers especially, this is all I ask of them. It's just simply, look, do your part, plan accordingly. You guys as a department help each other out, and just teach our kids. If you need to, make a few phone calls, and that's all. But don't get into this point where you're worried about things that you can't control, the politics, the what ifs. Don't be a hamster on the wheel. Okay. If I'm running, it better be for exercise. So
Yeah.
I mean, typically, for teachers, as far as tools and strategies I use for them, I'll give them one grow and one glow, as far as just trying to contact a few parents to make sure that our kids are here for tutorials and whatnot. But other than that, it's just we want to make sure that we're efficient. We're doing things by design and not by chance. If it comes to a project and you can't get it done for whatever reason, there's always tomorrow. And so you'd rather do something and take your time with it as opposed to trying to rush through it, right?
Yeah.
And do something when you're not as productive.
Yeah. So this is like the fifth time I've heard someone talk about be where your feet are. And
Mm-hmm.
and it's so powerful, so true. And I wish we heard that mantra more. Like if it could just be a movement where we say, be where your feet are. And I myself have experienced, like, even in the here and now, as you know, I've talked to you about this. I am going into full-time consulting, speaking, and writing next year. So I'm building up to that. When I am at work as a district instructional specialist, my mind is having a really hard time focusing on these two things at once, and it is draining. And so, it's like that for everyone. It's when you can't be where your feet are, it is just completely draining, and it feels like burnout. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. That's fantastic. What advice would you give leaders who feel overwhelmed by all of the constant demands of their roles? Because, as you said earlier, it doesn't stop.
Right, right. Yeah, this job certainly can't be entrusted to the weak or timid. But, and I know it's going to sound cliche once again, but remember why you took this job. And number two, give yourself some credit. So to your credit, I mean, you've come up with a book, you're doing the podcast, you're doing things for district office, and you're in this transition. You have to give yourself credit for that, Ms. Watts. And so when I think back as to when I first stepped into the role of being an administrator during COVID, my goal was to expand my capacity beyond that of the classroom as well as sports. So I remember that I interviewed on a Zoom call during the pandemic. I didn't even think I was going to get a second interview. I ended up getting the job, and I had to leave an area of comfort. The district that I was at, I knew I could have done that job for the next 10 to 15 years easily. However, next thing you know, I was going to a new district, a new role, and being coached up on the fly. And honestly, I was scared. But truthfully speaking, now going into my fifth year, I can honestly say that I've mentored teachers who have gone on to become assistant principals and that next generation of leaders. I've helped struggling teachers gain control of their classes and become better teachers. I've helped kids get out of bad situations, home life situations, and things of that sort. And yes, I've even saved lives. But that's why I'm here today. I'm more experienced, and I'm a better person for it. And so I think that as a person, regardless of what profession you come from, my friends, you got to think about what it means to you, right, and how you got here. And don't sell yourself short. Give yourself some credit. You're not having a bad day, I promise you. Maybe you're having a bad moment, and if you ever get to that point where you feel stressed out, you feel overwhelmed, or you feel like that anxiety is taking over, you're better off taking a small step in any direction, but don't sit there and idle, paralyzed by your own fears. Do not do that. Understand that you have a brand. Quitting is not how you got here, my friend. And so don't start now. You've done a great job up to this point, and just continue working at it. I promise you, you will get better at what you do, and the days will get easier.
Yeah, man, I feel like you're just kind of like preaching to me, like I'm here listening, and I'm like, yes, sir. Okay, I'm gonna do that. That sounds great.
I'm telling you, these books have really helped me out, man. I'm
Yeah.
feeling renewed.
Yeah.
It's,
So, guys, before the show, Joey was telling me about all of these books that he's been reading, and he even has a list of them in our show notes. And I was like, oh yeah, these are great books. Yeah, I love that so much. And so, to that point, listen, don't underestimate the power of a good book and how it can renew you. But also, Joey, like, there are so many things I want to say about this, but I'm gonna focus on one thing. First of all, yes, absolutely. I love that you are encouraging people to just give yourself credit for what you've done so far and where you're going. I also love, love, love. You are not having a bad day. You are having a bad moment. You can get past that, move in any one direction. That's gold. I also think, too, it's important for people to find colleagues like you. So you are obviously one of those people that, like, I could come to and say, I'm having what I feel like is a bad day and I need a little bit of coaching and support. You would be a person that would provide that coaching and support. People need to find that and be okay with reaching out for that support. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, and you can maintain the high expectations you want in a school organization by far. But I think one of the best qualities about any leader in general is that you have to be empathetic. Life is going to happen regardless. Life is life, and it's not going to take breaks for anybody and such. But let people take care of what they need to take care of, and just be efficient with what you do. If you finish, it could be something as small as a meeting. If the meeting ends early, let people go about their business, let them go ahead and plan, and let them do their thing, right?
Yeah.
uh and so forth. I'm a big believer. I love communication. If I tell you something, I'm going to put it in an email. I'm going to put it in a remind message. I'm going to announce it on the intercom, multiple facets. But one rule I've been very good about not breaking thus far is I'm going to keep my communication from 7:45 to 8:30, 7:45 to 4:30 p.m. If anything, I'm going to schedule the email to go out the following day. That's one thing I'm not going to press unless it's an emergency, unless somebody contacts me that they can't make it for whatever reason. Don't worry about that. We can compensate for that. But one thing I don't want to do to any person in general is just leave them in the dark. I feel right. I can only speak for myself, but I feel that you shouldn't leave anybody in the dark. Everybody should know where they stand, and that starts with weekly bulletins and that communication to make sure that everybody knows where they need to be.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And just thinking about those healthy boundaries that we can set, not only for ourselves, but for our staff as well. Like, I think sometimes too, it's hard for people to put boundaries in place. And it's part of our responsibility as leaders to model that and also put in, like, just kind of fit in boundaries for people, just to give them a little bit of a boost toward building boundaries. For the longest time, I want to say it wasn't until I moved into a more administrative role and when I stopped sending emails past 3:45. But it is so important to value that time, that work time that we have, and make sure that we're not causing an overload. We're not propelling people toward burnout because we are asking them to work beyond, those hours. Tell us a little bit about, because I feel like that definitely promotes a healthy culture. Are there any other, like, boundaries for yourself or for other people that helps with wellness and the culture of your school?
I think, and this is just me, just with a little confession. I mean, I've always been more about the work, and so I have to tell myself it's not about me; it's about the team, right? And so I didn't realize this until I became a part of administration, as much as how common it needs to be. But celebrate, have some fun, right? Have some fun. Where's the party at, right? Me, I'd rather just get to work and focus on those things, what needs to be done. And I haven't really been as much as a social gathering kind of guy. But again, when it comes to World Teacher Day and the custodian day, custodian week, the teacher assistant week, and things of that sort, party it up. Have some celebrations out there for them, and at the same time, don't be afraid to add your own flavor to the mix. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. This doesn't take a whole lot of planning. What is going to stop me? Let's say I'm running a school organization right now. What's going to stop me from saying, you know what, just out of the blue, I'm going to go to Walmart or HEB. I'm going to buy a whole bunch of orange snacks. Okay, stay with me on this, everybody. Buy a whole bunch of orange snacks. I'm going to come in tomorrow. I'm going to put them on a table in the front office. I'm going to put a sign there that says, Orange, you glad here to be here today? Something a little bit corny. I know it's corny. And just get on the intercom and tell everybody, look, if you want something, come on by. It's just out of the blue. You can turn somebody's day around, and especially if they're having a bad day. But it also helps in a sense of retention, teacher retention. And it shows your staff that you have that want to, that you do care about them. and that they're just not professionals that are just they're machines, because we're not. We're all human being at the end of the point, and we do experience burnout. And so you also want to provide people something to look forward to, even a small gesture at any point, which honestly I think they mean the most.
Yeah. Yeah. Just those small moments where it's like, I was thinking about you and I'm thinking about you outside of the day to day job and responsibilities that you have. Yeah, for sure. So this episode is all about beating burnout. Have you yourself experienced burnout, and what did you do to overcome it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd have to go back to my first 2 years of teaching and coaching. So when I first started looking for a job, I knew that I wanted to teach, right? I just wanted to teach. I was forewarned, don't get into any extracurricular activities, at least in your first year. However, I couldn't turn down my first opportunity though, right? So going in, I got a dual contract to teach and coach at the high school level, and I kind of knew what to expect. I didn't know how I was going to handle it though. And so my boss for the athletic directorship, he's now the athletic director at Kingsville University. Shout out to Coach Salinas. He comes from the collegiate level, so he did everything collegiate style. And so what that meant for me is that we were working 90 hours a week. We were on campus Saturdays and Sundays, and it came to a point my first year. I'm surrounded by all these veteran teachers and coaches that have already been there, done that. But on top of it, I'm trying to lesson prep. I'm trying to have materials ready, get seating charts going, the work. So I was there well after hours in the office. And so I wish I had a copy of my receipt, but I was living in a travel trailer. And to go ahead and quantify it, my water utility bill was like 50 to 60 cents. I mean, it just made sense because I was showering at the facility. I was doing my laundry there. And so I finally realized it when one time, don't even ask me what I was doing, but I fell asleep in the chair on a Friday night, and then I didn't wake up until the coaches started walking in at 7 a.m. And so that's when I just realized, like, look, my friend, you are being counterproductive. And when everybody else is going home, including the superintendent, you're still at work. You're sacrificing a lot of your time and a lot of time with family. And so this thing right here, this time, okay, it doesn't wait around for anybody. Once it passes you by, it passes you by. So time is ruthless in that sense. So that's when I decided from that point on, I'm just going to go ahead and put forth my full effort, yes, but at the same time, follow up with what I can for the next day.
Yeah, yeah,
Humbling moment.
yeah, that is a very humbling moment. And I'm sure so many of us educators have been there. Probably not quite to the extent that where your water bill is like 50 cents, but definitely get it. And I think too, there's like an excitement in the beginning of it, even in like no matter what position you take on a new position, there's an excitement and you want to do your best and you want to show up and you want to be there for it all and show your commitment to it. But everything comes at a price, right? And like you said, time is ruthless. Like it goes on by us. This has been so much fun talking to you, Joey. I want to start to wrap up. Tell our audience something that you hope they will take away from our conversation tonight.
Yeah, I think you just need to distinguish between two things. And that is money. Money you can always get back. Time you can't. I had just talked about that momentarily, but just understand that there's always somebody out there that loves you, that needs you, and needs you to be present in the moment. So just make sure you stand on all 10, be present within the moment. And I highly recommend. This is just me over the break. Get away from education. Try to strengthen your mind a little bit. Read some memoirs, read some stuff that you're into. And again, I tend to I like to do that because there's always something to learn from everybody, right? And so whether it's good or bad, you're going to pick something up. So I highly recommend that sort of thing.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Joey. This has been such a blast. Where can people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, I know I'm an assistant principal down in San Benito, Texas, home of the gold standard. If you ever need anything, shoot by sometime. We're over here down by South Padre Island, Texas. If you need to reach me, something, via virtually, you can add me on Instagram. I am _Joey Sanchez. and we're an eager team. We're always looking forward to helping out one another, and we'll see you then.
All right. Thank you so much, Joey. This has been a blast.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye. Okay, everybody, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I am going to leave you with a couple of things that I would love for you to do. First and foremost, definitely reach out to this guest. They put a lot of time and effort into joining me on Monday evenings, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And so I'm so appreciative, and I want you to be sure to show your appreciation to them as well. So you can share this episode with someone. You can reach out to them. Just show them your support. The other thing that I want you to do is look up my newest book, The Craft of Clarity, on Amazon. It is available now. I hope that you will read it, and I hope that you will leave a review. And then finally, I want you to be on the lookout for an upcoming conference. If you are a special education teacher, administrator, or director, this conference is going to be for you. It is the CEC Conference of 2025. It's going to be in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm going to be the opening keynote, and I hope to see you there. With all of that said, I hope you all have a wonderful week. We'll catch you next time. Hey there. Thanks for joining this episode. I would love for you to do me 3 solid favors before you head out. Number 1, subscribe to this show. I've got a lot of great guests and content coming up, and I don't want you to miss any of it. Number 2, share this show. Share it with your like-minded colleagues and friends and those leaders who are eager to build cohesive, vision-driven teams. And finally, connect with me on all the social media platforms. You can find me at Catch Up with Casey on Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Until next time, go off and create teams that leave people feeling inspired, empowered, and eager for more each day.